Ultimate Magic, the book with my favorite class, my favorite archetype, and the archetype I hate the most. Welcome everybody. Alright, first things first. Excuse the if you hear a little white noise in the background. Right now the heat here is getting at around 95 degrees. So I had to turn on the air conditioner, because if not, I'm gonna melt out. Alright, so Ultimate Magic. Now, Ultimate Magic is a game, book. Well, yeah, it's part of a game, but it's a book that came out for the Pathfinder role-playing game a couple of years ago, and I adore this book. I remember when they first announced it, I got really excited because, well, a little background. I like gishes. Now, for those of you that don't know what a gish is a term that the Get Janky and the Get Sarai used to use back in 3.5, D&D 3.5, to catalog their greatest warriors. And usually they would consider a gish someone that could could bolster themselves with magical abilities and also was good with a sword. So that's what what a gish is. But only Get Janky and Get Sarai would call other Get Janky and Get Sarai gishes. But that's in 3.5. Now, us, the players, the people, we decided, alright, that's a term we like a lot, so anybody that uses magic to bolster their martial abilities is a gish. And back in the day, in 3.5, there was a book, Second Player's Guide, I believe it was. There was a class there called the Duskblade. Now, the Duskblade was really good because he had good base attack bonus, good HP, could use armor, but he also has arcane spells. And so it was an Eldritch Knight sort of thing. Another thing, the Duskblade got eventually, and I completely forget what the name of the ability was, but he could channel a spell through his sword or weapon, and when he strikes, he delivers the damage of the strike and also deals the damage of the spell. So I thought that was great. It was amazing. I remember also, long time ago, I played Final Fantasy V. And in Final Fantasy V, there was a class that was called the Sorcerer. And it was weird because the Sorcerer in that game, what he would do is that he had a white turban and he looked Arabian. But what he would do is he would cast spells, but he would never cast them on enemies. He would cast it on the sword, and besides dealing the sword damage also would have the damage of the spell. So it was a class that dealt a lot of damage, and I like that idea that you use your spells, you channel your spells through your melee attack. I love that. Always liked it. I played a Duskblade once. It was cool, but the problem is, 3.5, they tend to have so many death levels. Death levels. A death level is when you level up and you gain nothing. Maybe a +1 to your attack bonus. But that's just lame. Pathfinder did something amazing that I'm going to be discussing once I get to the core Pathfinder book. And I start talking about that in 3.5, but that's much later. Let me not get sidetracked too much. So I was excited because when they announced Ultimate Magic, they announced a new class, and that name, the name of that class was the Magus. And at first I thought, okay, it's just a spellcasting class, but I read the excerpts, and I also did the playtest, and I found out it was like the Duskblade, but a million times better. Because honestly, anything that Paizo fixes from 3.5 is always gonna be a million times better. Alright, let me get my little notepad. Yeah, let's go first. Again, Magus, loved it. I did the playtest. I loved the playtest. Sadly, that character died. They were in a boat. They were fighting sea serpents, and I have no idea what happens when that game master uses his science die. When he uses a science die, he crits so much. And I checked them. They are not weighted die. It just, he crits so much. It's crazy. So he died. My Magus died in that fight. I think another character also died in that fight, and the other one was almost crippled. So then the book came out, and I remember I had a piggy bank, and it was full. And I just had a piggy bank. Anytime I had change, I would just put the change inside the piggy bank. And then when the book came out, I remember I was like, all right, so I have $40, and the book is $40. So either no gas money, and I buy the book. That's fine, because I don't go out that much. Or gas money, I can go out with friends more, but no book. But then I remember the piggy bank. I emptied it up, and I got exactly $40 plus tax. So I bought the book. I was really happy. I read it, doubled it up the same day, and to this day it's one of my favorite Pathfinder books, seriously. Alright, so the Magus. The Magus has an ability called Spell Combat. Amazing ability. As a full round action, you attack and cast a spell. You have to have a hand free because you're basically, it's two weapon fighting but with a spell. You can either cast a spell first and attack, or attack and then cast a spell, which is really good if you want to be like, I attack, then I cast a spell to make me go invisible. Or you want to, true strike, and then I attack, and I'm almost always going to hit. So it's really cool stuff. Then a couple of levels later, they get an ability called Spell Strike. And that ability is the one that lets them, I'm going to cast a melee touch spell. A spell that requires a touch attack. I imbue it into my sword and I attack with it. So I just love that mechanic in any game where I can do something like that. That's always what I do. I love it. And but the problem, the main problem I saw with the Magus was the capstone ability. The ability he gets at level 20. True Magus. Whenever they do spell combat, they can get a +2 to the attack roll, to the DC saving throw of the spell, +2 to the damage, or +2 to overcome spell resistance. And notice that I said or because you don't get all of them. It would be cool if you just got all of them, cause even if they got +2 to all of that when they use spell combat, it wouldn't be that much. At least I don't think so. So I think the capstone ability was weak sauce, definitely. I've played a couple of Magi, I guess that'll be the plural, Magi in the past, Maguses, Magusai, Magi in the past, and I've always had fun with them, seriously. Always had fun, except for that one time, but stuff happens, it was an accident, oh well. Moving on. The book has a lot of archetypes, and a lot of really fun ones. The alchemist gets a lot of different new extracts and discoveries, and they're cool. But there's one archetype that really caught my attention, and that's the reanimator. Now, what the reanimator does is they lower the damage of their alchemist bombs, but they can animate dead. So if you know anything about H.P. Lovecraft, yes, the reanimator archetype is literally, you are the reanimator from the movie. You're that guy. You're the creepy guy with the that look people like this one. Yeah, that guy. You're that guy. It's awesome. I think the book even describes it as you have a green liquid that you inject into people. So that's really fun. I loved it. So if you want to play that guy, make literally that guy, you can in that with that book. So another thing for the class modifications that I liked a lot was the bardic masterpieces. Now what these masterpieces are is they're little effects that they copy certain spells, and they rely on your performance skills. which is cool. You can learn one in place of a new spell or in place of a new feat, so you have versatility there. And I remember one, and I loved it, because each one has their own story about how they got created. And one of them, the effect is, after the performance, you cast Stone to Flesh. Now, the idea behind this one is there was a king back in the day that he would never smile, never would laugh. And somebody told him a joke that he started laughing. And that's how that performance, that masterpiece, was created. So that's really cool stuff for the bards. And I have no idea what the problem people have. I've seen it. Like, some people aren't that content with bards, but the bards are really, really good class. Really good. Then the cleric gets variant channeling. The cleric can channel energy, heal everybody around, or damage everybody around. Well, the variant channeling, they can trade in a couple of, I think it's half the die, or half the number they would heal or damage, and they get another effect. So I don't think you can choose to, though. Again, I have notes, but I didn't read the whole thing. Sue me. But it gets different effects. You get bonuses to damage, bonuses to attack, bonuses to saves. A lot of versatility with the cleric if they use the variant channeling thing. Then a really cool archetype the druid has is called the reincarnated druid. And it's crazy because the reincarnated druid, the whole shtick is that you are immortal and you always reincarnate. And at level 5, just level 5, if you get killed, you reincarnate somewhere around where you died. And you have 7 days to find, you don't have 7 days, but you get like a locate object spell cast on you for 7 days where you can find your old equipment. So that's really cool. If you die within those 7 days, you die permanently. But it's really cool because you achieve immortality at level 5. And the druid is a really good class as well, so yeah, a really good class. You have really good combat abilities, you have really good magic, you have healing, you have good skills, you can turn into bears and maul people, and you're also immortal. Awesome. Then the Inquisitor, which was a class that when it came out, I immediately played it. I liked it a lot, though it has a lot of little different things that you have to keep track of. But the Inquisitor has something that they choose a domain, like a cleric domain, and they get the abilities. Not the spells, but they get the abilities. And I guess a lot of people realized that was kind of lame, because they could have given them something for them. And I agree, because a lot of the just cleric domains, they don't go well with how the Inquisitor works. So they gave them, instead of domains, they can pick something called Inquisitions. And the Inquisitions are actual abilities that the Inquisitor gets, and the Inquisitions are dependent on the domain of the god the Inquisitor follows. So, you know, the Trickery domain has the Trickery Inquisition, and stuff like that. And most of the abilities are really, really good. Then another archetype that I like a lot, and this is my favorite archetype of all time, seriously, is the Blade-Bound Magus. I adore this archetype. The Blade-Bound Magus, what it does is, you trade away your first Magus Arcana, which is certain abilities you can get at specific levels. You know, you have a list of abilities, and every time you get a Magus Arcana, you pick one. Now it trades off the first one, and you get a Black Blade. Now what a Black Blade is, it has to be a bladed weapon, a one-handed bladed weapon, and it gets its own special abilities. So basically, you get an artifact, and that's really cool. It has its own intelligence score, it has its own ego score, but it's never gonna be, you know, too high. I mean, ones always exist, and I think, you know, like, even if you're really well geared and stuff, like maybe on a 4, you might still fail the will save if the sword decides to control you. Now, the trade-off is you get less of a lesser arcane pool. The arcane pool is some points that the Magus has to use a couple of abilities. So they get a lesser arcane pool, but the Black Blade has its own arcane pool, and it gets bonuses to damage. It gets an ability that I love, that you turn the damage type. It's always slashing, but you can turn it to ice. You can turn it to fire. You can turn it to electricity or acid, like the whole damage that the weapon does. It's really cool. It's indestructible. You can summon it from really far away. It's a really well-rounded archetype. I really like it a lot. And obviously it levels up with you. So at level 3, it's just a masterwork. I think at level 5 it gets a +1, up until level 15. I think that it turns into a +5. But it also works with Magus' ability that they have, which is to enchant their own weapons. So I think it was funny because at around level 9, your Black Blade is +2, plus you can enchant a weapon up to +3. But with that, you can just enchant your weapon up to +5 completely. So you have a +5 weapon at level 9. And some of you might think that that's too broken, but honestly, compared to a fighter with all of his fighter feats, you'll be fine. Compared to the paladin with sorry, turn it off. There you go. The air conditioner was making a really weird noise. Compared to the paladin and its might, it's no contest, obviously. But it's a really cool archetype. It tells you that the DM should work something with their player about where the sword came from, because the sword has its own agenda. All Black Blades do. They have their own agenda, and like you should work around with your game master, or just let your game master decide what's the agenda of the sword and stuff like that. So it's both mechanical and flavorful, and I love that. Then we have and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, the King Kong Monk. Now the King Kong Monk is an archetype for the monk, and they trade away every single class feature, like mystical class feature, for spell-like abilities. And I like it. I like it a lot. The problem is, you use your key pool to power those spell-like abilities, and your key pool's not that much. But you get things like Cold Ice Strike. You get damaging spells, and you get also buffing spells, and you can also have feats and the regular monk's abilities. So the prospect of customization with the King Kong Monk, amazing. I love it. Though I think they dropped the ball, because basically it's the Weeaboo Watashi wa Dragon Ball Z archetype for monks. And I honestly think they dropped the ball not giving it some sort of flight. Because you can still use Abundant Step, learn Abundant Step, and use Dimension Door. But I think it would have been really cool if they would have given them the fly spell. So you can just use Ki to fly around. I think that was a missed opportunity. And so it would have been really cool. I wish they could have, like in upcoming books, they would have expanded upon the King Kong Monk, because I think they could give it different spells that they could learn. Besides that, the monks also have monk vows in this book, and what the vows do is you get a negative effect on you at all times, but you get more key points as you level up. Though it's not really worth it, because one of them is poverty, the vow of poverty. And it's not as good as the 3.51 if you remember the book of Exalted Deeds, a feat that gives you feats. But the vow of poverty here is you can't own anything worth, I think, more than 50 gold pieces, except for a pair of sandals. And so it's you're not gonna have magic items. You can't buy potions unless somebody gives you a potion, but you can't carry around with them. So it's kind of restricting. And you might be thinking, oh boy, so do you get like 2 key points per level or something like that? No, you get about 1 every 3 levels. Yeah. So kind of subpar in that aspect. There are other vows that give you key points every 6 levels or every 4 levels. And you can have more than 1 vow, so which is fine. There's my favorite one, honestly, because this is how usually I play my characters. The vow of truth. You can't lie. You always say the truth. But honestly, that's usually how I play my characters, because you always say the truth, but nothing is forcing you to say the truth. So if somebody asks you something, you can just be like, I don't want to answer that. It's not you're not saying the truth. You're omitting the truth, but it's only when you speak. Alright, it's turning on the air conditioner again because I'm already sweating, and the heat is horrible here. Then for the sorcerer, a really cool archetype is the cross-blooded sorcerer. The cross-blooded sorcerer, you get you have your sorcerer, you have your bloodline where your powers came from, and the cross-blooded sorcerer, what it does is you can pick two bloodlines. Two bloodlines, you get multiple abilities. You get both bloodline arcanas, and you get all the skills. You can cherry pick what spells you want to learn for the levels that they give you spells, also for the feats and for the bloodline abilities. So that's really cool. I like it. The bad stuff with that one is you get less spells known. And the sorcerer already has a problem with less spells known. To the point that they tell you go to the table, and every time you will learn, look at the table and just reduce all spells by 1 to a minimum of 0. So when usually, because you still have your spell slots. Like for example, if you're a cross-blooded level 4 sorcerer, and you have second level spell slots, but you don't know any second level spells. So you use your second level spell slots to cast your fourth level spells. Fourth level spells. Your first level spells. So you learn your spells a lot later, and when the wizard learns Fireball at level 5, you're learning Scorching Ray at level 5. There are ways to circumvent that, but that comes later in the book. Then you have the summoner archetypes, and here you have one that annoys me, but nobody has ever used one in my game because I just tell them I don't like those type of shenanigans. It's the Broodmaster. The summoner can usually they have an Eidolon, they have a monster with them that they fights for them. Yay. Then the Broodmaster, what it does is you have more than one, up to 6, and it's just it marked me, because during my first game, and I didn't know, because again it was my first game, my first time being a game master. A friend of mine, that if you see my other web show, you know who it is. He asked permission to play Prestige class from a book called not Ultimate Magic, that's what I'm doing, called The Tome of Magic. And what that did is you learn the true name, I think it was, of different demons or devils, and you can summon them. So he was a party of 1. I think he was a wizard, wizard binder or wizard true namer, I don't really remember. But he was a wizard. He had a babao. He had, I think, a succubus, and something else, I think. But the thing is, he was a party. He was a wizard, he had a rogue, he had a fighter, and the succubus could also enchant people. So he himself was the party, and it was horrible because sometimes his turns would take over 20 minutes. Well, he moved everybody around the battlefield, and he decided what to do. It was, oh man. And after that game, because I didn't stop him, I said, you know what, play it, and let's just finish the game with your character. Because if I already said yes, I don't want to say no later. But after that, I told him I am never going to allow another class that has a lot of little creatures with them, because it's not fun for the other players. That's the problem. Because then the other players are waiting. I remember once we were playing in college, and when his turn came up, like 3 people stood up from the table, went to churches to buy food. And then they came back, and his turn was just finishing. Crazy stuff. Then has the archetype I hate the most. And man, this archetype, wow. How Paizo dropped the ball with this archetype. The synthesist. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you watching this are doing the same face I am. The synthesist. When I first read it, I was like, whoa! This is an amazing archetype. I want to make one. That looks so cool. But I never did. However, in one of the last games that I played, which was honestly my magnum opus, best game I've ever run in my life, and I don't think I'm ever gonna run something that awesome, but I can hope. I'll explain some other video eventually in the future, maybe, perhaps. So a friend of mine told me, can I play in Synthesis? And I'm like, oh yeah man, sure, go ahead. I've always loved that archetype. Mistake. As simple as, all my physical stats are my dump stats, my highest stats are my mental stats, and then when I summon the Eidolon and I synthesize with it, his physical stats become my physical stats, so all my stats are good. Every single one. I have more HP than everybody else because the Eidolon's HP turns into temporary HP for me. But unlike regular temporary HP, I can use Restore Eidolon to heal that temporary HP. Ugh. Good saves, good AC, immunities, good damage. It's not broken, and that's the thing. The class is not broken. The problem is it does everything so well. Everything it does every single thing so well. And I think that's where they dropped the ball, because I've read people saying, oh, if you don't allow the synthesis because you're not that good of a game master. No, it's not that. They didn't tell me, it's just stuff I read in the forums. It's not that. It's not that you're a bad game master. You're a good game master because you're making good decisions. You are the game master. You master. You decide what goes and what doesn't go. And after we started, I didn't want to tell him, hey, you have to change your class. I hate doing that. And sometimes what I had to end up doing was just tailor make the encounters so they would be challenging for him. But the problem was, if they were challenging for him, they were damn near impossible for the other players. Because they were good characters. It was a rogue and a druid, but their survivability and their damage output was nowhere near his. Not only that, since he had also had high intelligence, he had a lot of skill points, which honestly I don't mind. I like skill points. The more skill points my players have, the better.